about 48 hours removed. Doesn't feel any better. Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals, still reeling from what we experienced a couple nights ago, where the Cardinals get demolished at SoFi Stadium, ending their season. A lot more questions than answers. We're going to try and do our damnedest to chip away, starting right now. Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by OnlineGambling.com. This podcast loves OnlineGambling.com. They just joined us a few weeks ago. It's the place to be for all the latest gambling news and tips throughout the NFL playoffs. Visit OnlineGambling.com/NFL to get the edge over the competition throughout this year's playoffs. Listen, follow him at Bo Brack. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please like, comment, subscribe at Locked On AZ, or follow at Locked On AZ Cards. We've talked during the preseason, we talked during the regular season, and now we're talking during the postseason. If this doesn't work out, and if this sputters out after starting 7-0, we're going to have uncomfortable conversations come this offseason. And Twitter's ablaze. Obviously, this is still very fresh. Everybody's still hot with their thoughts on why this happened, who's to blame, what should be next, who should be the head coach, who should be the GM, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Bo and I are going to kind of take a step back and just kind of process while you watch and listen what we've experienced over the last 48 hours. We're going to talk about Kyler Murray. That's one of the uncomfortable conversations that's going to be had this offseason. And one thing that that Bo and I are kind of in lockstep with, which is, a nice little surprise, a nice little bonus for once. And then finally, run it back or blow it up. Run it back or blow it up. We'll talk about that in the third segment. So, Bo, we're about 48 hours after, 50 hours, 52, 54 hours since just the travesty that we experienced, the 11-point performance against the Rams on Monday Night Football to knock the Cardinals out of the playoffs. Does it feel real yet? Does it feel like, because you thought they were going to win going into Monday night. I reached out to a lot of people. A lot of people thought they were going to win going into Monday night. I said if they got to 30, they'd win. If they didn't, they wouldn't. That was kind of a cop-out answer, but I ended up being right, even though I had a broader scope to be right.
No, you don't get it to be right. You didn't make a prediction. But go ahead.
Well, I said if they score 30 points, they win. Okay. And they didn't. So
that's
what? I said if they score 30 points, they win.
You're not right on that. First off, if they got to 30, they still lose, but they lost 34-30 or 34-11. But okay.
Okay, but they could have scored 35 because that would have eclipsed. Are we going to do this now? We have the whole offseason to bitch at each other. Okay, can we just talk about this?
I'm not going to have you take a dub where you should take an L.
You make up your own damn rules for all of our games all the time.
As far as the assignment is concerned, you get an incomplete.
I really wish I could mute you right now. Thoughts after what we witnessed, the backlash for Kyler Murray, Cliff Kingsbury, Vance Joseph, Steve Keim, etc. Just what are your thoughts? What have you processed so far?
Yeah. As far as where I am right now is the realization about what our perspective, what our expectations are, what the fans' expectations are is different than what the organization's expectations are, what they want. Because I think the organization is fully content with taking baby steps. That's it. That's what I've kind of gleaned from this, is that this is an organization that in 2018 hit the reset button and they were just going to get incrementally better and improve each and every season. And they're going to take a postseason appearance, an 11-6 record, improvements in wins, improvement offensively, improvement defensively, and these small baby steps, they'll take those as minor victories. And that's what the organization is content with, where I think the fan base sees, the top tier talent on this team with the ability, it should have the ability to compete with anybody. But the reality, Alex, is they've got a great sprint core. Like they can they can win in a sprint. But if it's a marathon, if it's anything longer than that, they can't keep up. They just can't because, and I'm deep diving it, and I think it just comes down to missing in the NFL draft. Like Steve Keim has the ability to go out and find impact makers in the free agent market, and he's been able to find impact makers through the trade market. But where he's fallen horribly short is through the NFL draft, and that's where you can find young, controllable talent and depth. And we're not talking like Pro Bowler. We're talking about guys that just can keep up, guys that when your top tier talent goes down, they can step up, they can play, they can fill in for a couple games here and there, and you not get massacred on a top stage. But I think what this team, this organization is fully content with is, okay, we got our franchise quarterback to the playoffs. He got his humbling moment. That's that step. Let's get that out of the way. Now the next step is next season.
Oh, it's always next season, isn't it? They'll do better next season. This is because you're right about Steve Keim. I mean, anybody that defends Steve Keim drafting ability, shut up. I'm sorry. You're wrong. You're wrong. We don't know. Okay, so first of all, you can't give him credit for Kyler Murray because he was running unopposed. Number one. The best draft pick he had, where you actually give him credit for it, was trading up to draft Budda Baker in the second round. That was the best draft pick he had, in my opinion. What, you would think Tyrann Mathieu late?
Yeah.
But that was rounder. Yeah, but I mean, he would have been a top 15 pick if it wasn't for the weed stuff. And if the weed stuff now is kind of a joke, sure, give him the benefit of the doubt. Okay, fine. He was the one that went against the grain because he thinks he's the smartest person in the room, the egomaniac that he is. It's like, you know what? We got it. Which, true. Tyrann Mathieu's been a perfect, dude. He's I mean, he speaks for himself with how great of a professional and leader Tyrann Mathieu is. But I would still give Budda Baker just because Budda Baker's still on the team and he got a second contract that wasn't ballooned to where he had to go restructure. Steve Keim is putting, and as much as I've said that Cliff Kingsbury's got to go, which I still think he does, he's hamstrung this entire organization with his inability. They give you draft picks. The NFL says, you know what? You're going to get 7 of these suckers. You get 7 every year. And you could do with them as you please. So sure, you could trade for top-tier talent, usually much older than what you're drafting, or you could take these 7 free picks. You get 7 of them. And you know what? If you use that to your advantage, then you could sign guys for a lot of money when these guys aren't making a whole lot. And that's how you build an organization. But Steve Keim is so inept that is just taken out of the pie completely. So I agree with you, and these are things that, you know what? He still has a job. He should have been fired 3 times by now. You can defend him if you want. I think that's a completely irrational thought process. Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals. Kyler Murray, he's been under fire. He's too short. He's not ready. He doesn't watch enough film, and apparently he's not ready to be a leader. We've heard all of those things times 1,000. We're going to break it down what we think about that next. OnlineGambling.com, though. We're all looking for an edge these days. And I'd like to thank OnlineGambling.com for sponsoring today's podcast. If you don't know already, OnlineGambling.com is a website dedicated to giving bettors the edge throughout the playoffs. They're providing you with the best NFL tips, news, and more to help your bets be the most informed bets as possible. Okay? We've got the divisional round coming up. Okay? My upset is going to be the Bengals. I did my podcast with Tyler Rowland of Tic Tac Titans from Locked On NFL today. I said the same thing. And you know what? If you want to get more information about that, if you want to do anything regarding news and notes about the NFL playoffs, OnlineGambling.com's got you covered. They've picked their own upsets, which can be found in the OG Tips article on their website. And I go and check that out. So listen, Make sure you visit onlinegambling.com/NFL for all the latest gambling news, tips, and info to beat the odds and give you the edge throughout the playoffs. Remember, onlinegambling.com/NFL to make the most of this year's playoffs. All right. Second segment, Bo Brack, Alex Clancy. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Please subscribe. We're about 60 away from 2K. LOC 2K. It's right around the corner from YouTube. Seriously, regardless of how crappily the season ended, and this has been so fun. It's growing by the day, and Bo and I couldn't be more excited about where things are heading. Kyler Murray has been under fire with his I think subpar, let's just say subpar. We don't need to pile on here. Subpar performance during his first playoff game. There was a tweet that went out showing what Peyton Manning's first playoff game was like, what Brett Favre's playoff game was like. I think it's a little different because they couldn't be different quarterback-wise. This is more of a question of, is he big enough? Can he see over the offensive line as a pocket passer? Is he a good enough leader? Does he watch enough film? Does he play too many video games? According to a New York Times article, he doesn't like to watch a lot of film. I'm paraphrasing. How much of this, say like the 100% pie, okay? You can blame whoever you want. If you want to blame DJ Humphries 99%, this is your pie, Bo. You're baking this pie. Just taking the slice of Kyler Murray blame pie, to quote Mr. Jody Ayler, Fox Sports 910 mornings. Blame pie. What percentage does Kyler get?
For Monday night or just
for Monday night? Well, look, collapse? You know what? Let's do because it's just a part of the collapse. Right. Since after the bye week, how much does Kyler get?
There's a couple things that you were rolling through a bunch of there, and I do appreciate the tweet. Yeah, Peyton Manning, Colts were blown out 41-0 by the Jets. He threw for 137 yards, 2 picks. Brett Favre threw 6 interceptions.
That's so many.
And a loss to the Rams in his first playoff game. Josh Allen, we can remember, not impressive in his first game. So, yeah, it's not an unprecedented thing to see a guy, even in his third season, struggle when the lights are a little bit brighter in the postseason. As far as this is the second consecutive day we've brought up pie. We're getting into we're baking a lot today.
I love pie.
Yes, it just depends. I mean, absolutely. But there are some pies that are overrated that are in the elite status.
Like what?
I'm not a big apple pie guy.
Yeah, it's consistency. I mean, it's about the crumble for the apple pie. Yeah,
for sure. Crust is that's the biggest.
Cherry pie. Yeah.
Warm fruit. Not a big fan. But yeah, look. Kyler was the offensive line. I mean, and this gets back to your general manager. One guy that you drafted, and then the guy you traded for, Rodney Hudson. I don't know if he had his best performance, but I think you can kind of say he showed up. He showed up each and every week he played. He had some snap issues, but I'm not going to put any blame on Rodney Hudson. But the rest of the offensive line was atrocious. Like relying on guys like Max Garcia week in and week out. Kelvin Beachum, who's fine. It's just this patchwork way of trying to put together something that's so important, especially when you're going up against playoff caliber teams. And it's just not going to – I mean, you saw it in the Super Bowl, for God's sake. I mean, if you just don't have an offensive line that can protect your quarterback, I don't care how talented he is. He can't do anything. So when you look at his playmakers – the wide receiver core completely folded after DeAndre Hopkins was out. And it's just like the concern I have about Kyler Murray right now is it's not him that's elevating the play of the offense. It's DeAndre Hopkins because since he's been on the shelf, that offense has struggled, right? So as far as Monday, there's a whole lot of blame. And I said it. I think it's the entire organization. But I'd say, he's somewhere between 25 to 33% of this. I mean, it's a big sliver just because he plays the most important position in sports, and he just didn't. He had the worst game of his career. But at the same token, he wasn't. Nobody rallied around him anywhere on any side of the ball in any position group. Anybody on the coaching staff, nobody was there. So brutal performance. So. But I do think that the Kyler Murray slander is pretty pretty at a disrespectful level right now. It is. And there might be one little caveat to that. Might be one thing that the Arizona Cardinals can use to their advantages, because I think you extend them regardless, right? He's at his lowest value right now. Like, you took the steps forward, and hopefully there aren't any bad habits that have been developed here. And I think that you can make your case for some. But I think that he's made a big enough case to what else are you going to do at the quarterback position? He's been dynamic a lot of the time. I think you extend him, and maybe you can get a little bit of a discount right now.
Yeah, I mean, like I still, and it's target practice for me because I've been saying this forever. Like, if you see multiple oh my God moments from a quarterback, it is the job of the coaches to sprout more of those and more frequently and more consistency. We're not talking about running around back and forth behind the line of scrimmage and finding a rondo more that's wide open on a blown coverage because he's been running around for 6 seconds. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a dime down the sidelines. I'm talking about a perfect slant, or like an oh my sweet mother, how did he fit that in? Which we've seen multiple times, like, countless times from Kyler Murray. It's the coach's job to make the players better. That's what practice is for. And I think Cliff Kingsbury has severely failed him. And it's not all on Cliff, but it's not on Cliff either, because that was his main job as he was hired. Make Kyler Murray QB1. Do it. And he's failed. I think he's failed.
I don't think so. You don't believe he's a definitive quarterback one in the NFL right now?
I think a lot of this is on just Kyler Murray being an exemplary talent. And I think he's very raw still. And he looks polished at times, but trimming the fat is something that coaches do. Because Kyler, if both of Kyler's legs fall off, he's still going to want to play football. Like, you have to save the players from themselves. That's the coach's job. Like, you think Andy Reid hasn't trimmed fat from Patrick Mahomes? Like, look at how he's playing football now. It's so much more controlled and boring, and they're just winning football games the second half of the season. They completely flipped.
And that's interesting. And I think Andy Reid learned a valuable lesson coaching guys like McNabb and really more of a guy that's the caliber of talent, athleticism-wise, and Mike Vick. Like, Mike Vick early on with the Eagles was unbelievable. But that's because he was running a system that was built for Kevin Kolb. Like, and he was just running within a system, and then when things broke down, he uses his elite athleticism. But once they started to build the system around, they created a bunch of crutches to rely on Mike Vick, and his play dropped off. And then when I think that Andy Reid learned that lesson when he went to Kansas City, and he got the talent, the type of Mahomes. And Mahomes transcends everything. Like, I feel like Mahomes is trying to break down what Barry Bonds does at the plate compared to other hitters in major leagues. It's it's not fair. Like, what they do is just it's alien like. Or they're demons. So I think Mahomes is a tough example, but keep in mind, Cliff Kingsbury, Kyler Murray, what are they supposed to do when your offensive line is continually getting blown off the ball, and you're under pressure, and your wide receivers aren't doing you any favors either? And Kyler, I feel like down the stretch was just off. We know he throws a good deep ball. Mm-hmm. We know he's there. DeAndre Hopkins creates opportunities as a decoy or just being in the lineup to create just that extra space for other guys to where he was hitting on those. But he missed. He missed early in LA, and it was 3 and out, and then it was pick six, whatever. But it's just the NFL is so slim to get back to Al Pacino. Any given Sunday, it's a game of inches, and he was just an inch off on a lot of those. So, and it chicken egg things. Is it because of the lack of talent on the roster and depth, or is it play calling? And I don't think anybody is innocent here.
No, I mean, that's true. Nobody's innocent. But let me tell you something. If I have to hear one more time that Kyler likes the deep ball read down the sideline on 3rd and 5, if that were any offensive-minded head coach, would have pulled him by the shoulder pad and said, make the easy play, get a first down. Like, I don't understand why it's like, oh, it's Kyler's, oh no, Kyler just likes that. Oh, he likes the matchup. You know what? On 3rd and 2, smart quarterbacks move the chains. And I'm not putting that on Kyler. I'm putting that on Cliff for not just rattling him and saying, listen, that's not the play every time. That is the lowest percentage throw of any of them in the route tree on 3rd and short. And I don't understand why that was never. It's like, oh no, that's the matchup he likes. You tell me that, and like I get both sides, but sweet Jesus, if that were Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid saw that multiple times and it wasn't working, it's like, what are we doing here?
Because Russell Wilson was the same way, and I think Russell Wilson sometimes fell in love with that play as well. But through the maturation of just the NFL quarterback, like Kyler Murray, you hope he's going to figure it out, like that he's going to be able to read the defense and say it's there, the his number one option, which is deep ball, big play. And if it's not there, still have the ability to go through his progressions. But right now, at this stage of his career, unfortunately, I don't think it's there. And that's something that he's going to have to work on, this season. And the last thing, you mentioned like the New York Times thing saying about how he doesn't like to watch film. It's
that was very paraphrased. I've not read the article yet.
I understand, but to take the paraphrased article, whatever. And I understand like what you're trying to say. But it's funny because people will do that and they'll use it to criticize Kyler. But then there's guys like Bruce Arians, who is a head coach and he had a lot of success and he's had a ton of success, where he's like, I don't want my coaches staying, until midnight, 1, 2, 3 in the morning. I want them to come in and work office hours, get in, get out. And it's like if the Bucks were failing, he'd be criticized for that. It's like it's colorful, it's fun when you're winning, but when you're losing, it's fuel for people to pile on.
For sure. And unfortunately, for the NFL and for conversations like this, you have to remove Tom Brady and any team Tom Brady's ever been on and any coach that's ever coached him. Because you're right. No, you're 100% right. But it's a total anomaly. I mean, it's an anomaly and we're probably never going to see it again. But what we've seen since 1998, Bo, 23 years, he's ruled the NFL in a way that we've never seen before. And he does it himself. He doesn't need anybody to make him watch more film or to do more reps or to do whatever. He does it himself. He's a robot. Alex, Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked on Cardinals. Coming up next, very simple question we will dive into much deeper as the offseason progresses or offseason, proceeds. Run it back or blow it up. No gray area. No Bo making his own damn rules to the game. Blow it up or run it back. Next, Locked on Cardinals. First, people think unusual circumstances mean complicated taxes, but for TurboTax Live experts, that's what makes things interesting for them. Maybe you inherited a condo or you're renting it out, or maybe you're getting paid in crypto or aren't sure how it's taxed or whatever. For TurboTax Live experts, an interesting life can mean an even greater refund. Luckily, TurboTax can match you with the right expert who has experience in your unique situation and can answer all your tax questions right from your phone or computer. They can even take care of the whole filing process for you, which is pretty sweet. Whether you launch your own startup or you're working multiple jobs and juggling multiple incomes, an experienced TurboTax Live expert can help you during the entire filing process or do your taxes for you from start to finish to get you the tax deductions you deserve. Visit TurboTax.com to learn more. You do your thing. They've got your taxes. Intuit TurboTax Live. It's All the Way Live. Really good song. Didn't really understand the lyrics at the time. That was Coolio, right? It's All the Way Live. Anyways, Alex, Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked on Cardinals. So the Cardinals have a different team than they did last year, or than they did in 2020. A lot of new faces, and a lot of players now that are free agents. Like a lot, like half their starters. Right now. And you know what? Let's throw Cliffy Baby in there. Blow it up or run it back. If the numbers, like, this is an exercise. Okay. If all the money worked out, don't pencil push me here. If everything worked out money-wise, blow it up or run it back.
Oh, blow it up. I mean, if those are the options. You can't run it back, but there's going to be but they are going to run it back in how they're going to approach the offseason. Like what Michael Bidwill said going into the offseason last year in 2021 is they're going to be bullish. They're going to be bullish again. Like they're going to be aggressive because there's a general manager that's fighting for his job. It's happening. It's perpetual as far as him doing this, and he's going to take these big swings each and every offseason. Even though probably the right move, Alex, is to find young, controllable talent that you can develop, that you can have on your roster as you pay Kyler Murray 18 to 20% of your salary cap. But they're going to have a similar approach instead of, I don't think Steve Keim's learned his lesson. I will be happily surprised if he goes and he approaches the offseason as, spreading the wealth as far as the cap money that they have available and trying to create depth. But they have so many holes, it's nearly impossible. Like they just need to use that money to fill the holes. And then as far as the depth's concerned, they're just going to have to get lucky at this point. Like that's just it. It's like you're just going to have to get lucky. So in a sense, it's running it back. It is. It's just going to be the same approach, but it's not going to be the same guys. It's still going to be veterans that they're going to spend a lot of money on. It's just not going to be the same veterans. So you can kind of breathe a sigh of relief that they're not just going to, go with the same guys, but it's going to be the same approach. They're not going to take a different team building approach at this thing at all.
See how that frustrates me that you answer both?
No, but it's not fair how you ask the question.
That's not true.
Are they going to run it back with the same, like everybody? No, they're not. If they did, this fan base should be furious. They should be furious with it. It
worked out pretty well through 12 weeks.
It did, but Cliff Kingsbury, even in his post game, said that there's going to be a focus on finishing, and you can't finish with the caliber of player that they're signing because, like I said, they're kind of sprinters. You can't rely on them for the haul that is a 17-game season.
Yeah, or the head coach that's coaching them. But I digress. I agree. It's a blow it up situation. But the thing is, like, the Cardinals have so many draft picks.
I don't think it is a blow it up situation. I don't. I think that an 11-win team that fell short and certainly had its
I meant run it back. I didn't mean blow it up. I didn't mean blow it. No. And I didn't. But like, I would love for them to re-sign James Conner. I would love for them to re-sign Zach Ertz. They didn't do anything wrong. They didn't get the opportunities on Monday night. It's going to be Christian Kirk. It's going to be Chase Edmonds. We're going to have uncomfortable conversations. Like, would you rather have James Conner and Eno Benjamin or James Conner or Chase Edmonds and Eno Benjamin? I'd much rather have James Conner at this point, personally. Wide receivers, the salary, like, I don't know if we're going to have an uncomfortable conversation about DeAndre Hopkins. Not this year, but he's going to be like, the cap hit is around 25 or 26 mil this year. JJ Watt, are they going to restructure? Is he going to retire a Cardinal? Are they going to add another year? Are they going to add dummy years on the tail end to restructure? They're going to have to. They're going to have to do a lot of that. They're going to have to get really, really weird with this. AJ Green's probably gone. He's probably going to go somewhere else and do the same exact thing that he did here, but maybe get more opportunity instead of just running down the sideline and getting jump balls, because that's the majority of the usage that AJ Green got.
Yeah.
And during broken plays.
James Conner, if he's in the same role, sure. But if it's to bring him back and give him a bigger chunk of the carries, I'm not for that, because his yards per carry were way down. He's got a pretty defined role of where he can be successful, and they had it. It was there this year, and I'm fine with that. But just don't back up the Brinks truck for him. Find something that makes sense. But a lot of the guys that are going to exit, I think a lot of you can replace them with guys who are going to be equal. If not worth. I hope they're not going to do this, but I wish they would take a Kansas City Chiefs approach that they took last year and just completely emphasize the offensive line, where they went out and they got, they traded for, what was it, Orlando Brown from the Ravens to play left tackle, and they drafted Creed Humphrey, who was one of the best rookies in the league. Take the rookie tab off him. He was one of the best centers in the league.
Yeah. I think he was all pro.
Yeah, they rebuilt that entire offensive line in one offseason because they said that was the biggest problem. Because I think when you have a built in an offensive line that you can rely upon, it just changes what Kyler Murray can do. It changes what playmakers can do. Like if guys are having trouble getting open in the time that is available, you give them some time. It's tough to cover anybody. So even if you're replacing, Christian Kirk with DJ Shark, it's fine. You're not going to see that big of a difference. So we'll see.
Right. Yeah. Alex, Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked on Cardinals. I mean, we're just scraping the surface of the surface of the surface with how much we're going to be talking about over the next handful of months leading up to the draft. We'll talk to you tomorrow. That's all I got. Locked on Cardinals.